What story are you telling yourself? Do you realize that every waking moment you're telling yourself a story about what's going on around you? It's a continuous narration that you listen to that is commenting on events. It is interpreting what's going on and telling you what it means. And it shapes your attitudes, your moods, your relationships. It has an enormous effect on every part of your life. In fact, right now, it's telling you a story about this video, whether you should pay attention to it or not. Now, the story that you're listening to is greatly affected by these three parts of your life: your mind, spirit, and your emotional baggage. You see, in your mind, if you have trouble with thought control, like if you have depression, anxiety, or mood swings, then you're going to have trouble controlling the theme of your thoughts. So if you have depression or anxiety, you'll be down, sad, negative, or worried, and that will be the story that you're telling yourself. And if you're under the attack of Satan, he is always trying to fill you with negative thinking, pessimism, but his primary goal is to erode your trust in God, and that will be the story that he wants to tell you. But the greatest influence on the story that you're listening to is what's in your emotional baggage. So if you've had a very happy, successful, positive childhood, then you'll tell yourself a positive story. You'll interpret the world around you in a positive, optimistic, and hopeful way. And negative events, you'll just brush them off because you know that they'll pass and good things will happen. But if you've had a really painful childhood and a painful past and a lot of wounds, and you believe a lot of lies about yourself, others, and God, then you'll have a very pessimistic outlook. And the story that you tell yourself will be a negative interpretation of events. You'll always be a glass half empty kind of person. But the good news is you can change the story that you're listening to. It is not a life sentence. You don't have to be stuck there. And with God's help, you can change the story. Now, how do you do that? Well, the first step is to become aware that you are listening to a story continuously. There is a narration going on in your mind about your life events. And if you're not sure, ask God, what story am I listening to? And here's a key question: how does that story make you feel? Because if it's a negative, pessimistic story, it is constantly dragging you down and disrupting every day of your life. And the second step is ask God, what story does he want you to be listening to? Now, I had an incredible wake-up call this week while I was preparing this video. I was thinking about the stories we listen to, and God woke me up to a part of my life that I was listening to a very negative and pessimistic story. And I really wasn't aware of that because I thought I was just being realistic. And he said to me, what story are you listening to? And I explained, and then I realized I was listening to a story, and I said, well, what story do you want me to listen to? And it was so dramatically different, I was shocked. In fact, a little bit embarrassed because I teach on this. Because what his interpretation of events was so opposite to mine. And so I just picked his, because when I think of it his way, I feel a whole lot better than when I picked my story. Now, for you, if you have a mood disorder like depression, anxiety, or mood swings, you need to get that treated. You need to talk to a doctor. There's lots of information on my website, because you need to regain your thought control, and then you can control the story. But if you have a lot of painful baggage and a lot of painful things in your past that Satan's taken advantage of to remind you of, then you need to talk to a counselor or me. You need to unload your baggage, get rid of all those lies, so you're no longer under the weight of that pessimistic outlook. And ask God, what is the story that he wants you to be listening to? Remember, you can change. It will change your life. So to live a transformed life, you need to listen to the story that God wants you to be listening to. Now I want to hear from you. How have you been able to change the story that you were listening to probably for years? Just leave your comments in the box below, because we want to hear your testimony. And if this is your first visit here, you need to get my free self-assessment guide. And to do that, just subscribe to my weekly email newsletter by filling out the subscription form. You know where it is. It's always right there. And I'll talk to you next week. But this week, ask God, what's his story that you're to listen to?